We are rolling now. Counting us down. 3, 2.
You're listening to Missing Out with Lex Michael and Tari J. Let's start the show.
Hey guys, welcome back to Missing Out. I'm Tari J.
I'm Lex Michael.
And if this is your first time listening, what we do here is we introduce each other to different media, whether it be movies, music, television, spoken word, books, poetry, experiences, things that have built us up as people. And in sharing them, we hope that it builds you up. We are the retrospective that is introspective.
Ooh, that was delicious, like a sweet, sweet gourmet rock.
Heck yeah. What?
It's in the movie.
Oh.
The big dude who eats rocks.
Yes, got
Who's
it.
like, gourmet rock, crunch, crunch, crunch. Watch out for my crumbs. And boulders and shit are falling down on the puppets.
That's true.
Yeah.
I forgot
what'd you watch?
I watched a different movie. I watched the Neverending Story 2.
The ending story.
Yes, it's very sad. No, we are, if you didn't read the title or hadn't guessed by our inferences.
Yeah, this just auto-played. They don't know what we're talking about.
We're talking about Neverending Story, the 1984 film, directed by Wolfgang Petersen, based on the novel by MacLeod of the same name. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. I don't know. I don't know German. He's Germans. It stars a bunch of people. It was originally shot in Germany. Some scenes were shot in Canada. So some of the scenes, especially like the first few scenes, were some of the characters were actually speaking German, and they dubbed over in English. And then
You mean the puppet characters?
no, the like human characters. And some of the puppet characters. So the Rockbiter was speaking German.
Okay.
And the hairy guy was speaking German.
Got it. Oh, the hair, like the witch man person.
Yes.
Yes.
And for American audiences, they brought in Steven Spielberg to help with the edit. So some scenes were cut down, some scenes were extended, just to kind of have it be the pacing that American audiences were used to.
Okay.
Yeah. So I made Lex watch this. What did you think of it?
This movie is something. I had never seen this. This was a big... It was a fixture in a lot of childhoods of people I know. The people who grew up with Neverending Story. It holds a very special place in their heart. I'd missed it completely. Really, all I knew about Neverending Story was that there was a flying dog thing called Falkor.
Okay.
That was the extent of my knowledge. I don't think I knew until I watched it for this show that it was directed by Wolfgang Petersen. Wolfgang Petersen has a really interesting filmography. Made a lot of, obviously, a lot of movies in German before starting to make movies for American audiences. But this is the guy who directed Das Boot, In the Line of Fire with Clint Eastwood, Outbreak, the one where the monkeys carrying a virus. You know Outbreak.
Yes.
Air Force One, Get Off My Plane, that's him. Troy, Brad Pitt has a vulnerable heel.
Okay.
The Poseidon Adventure remake. Weird. He was attached at one point, if I'm not very much mistaken, in the late 90s, maybe very early 2000s, for a minute there, to make a Batman-Superman movie.
Oh, interesting.
Which obviously did not happen. Point being, this dude's got a really eclectic filmography.
Yeah.
And Neverending Story sits so interestingly to me alongside movies like Das Boot and In the Line of Fire.
Well, Das Boot was the movie that was right before Neverending Story.
Yes, and I wanted to be... I would love to be in the room when they were trying to find somebody to helm the Neverending Story. The movie goes hard, to be fair, but it's ultimately it's a whimsical story about the power of imagination and hope overcoming darkness and nothingness. And I want to know what the conversation was like that led them to the Das Boot guy.
I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, he did write the screenplay, So it may have been a passion project for him. He may have read the book and been like, I've got to do these movies. Because that's how he talks. 'Cause
Yes.
that's what the German accent
Absolutely.
is. So I assume maybe in his eyes, he was like, I have a vision and I'm going to make it so. And then it all came together.
That's how he does it.
Yeah.
That's how he made Troy.
Yep. Also a passion project. He was like, oh boy, I love the classics, so I'm going to make a modern classic. Because classics is the name of the major if you're studying mythology and Greek and Roman mythology in school.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that for our audience if they are not as educated as myself.
You see, Tari is what we call a coastal elite.
Yeah.
He has no regard for the blue-collar working class.
Indeed.
Indeed.
Yes.
been
My
making-
collars are white and above.
White and above.
Yeah.
Ultra white.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes they're so above white that you can't even see them. You have to be of a certain caliber to for your eyes to even take in the spectrum that I'm at.
His collars are literally made of prisms.
Yeah. I was introduced to the Neverending Story actually in elementary school. It was a rainy day, and so they would show movies in a trailer.
I feel like, this seems like a perfect Our Activity Got Rained Out movie for groups of kids.
Right. So on one rainy lunch, in a trailer that was packed full of way too many kids, I saw pieces of this.
Yeah.
And I feel like I remember some parts differently than they happened. I guess it's my kid brain because some of this movie is fairly dark.
Way more so than I was expecting.
Yeah. And so some of the parts I remember them being very scary and even more tragic. So there's a moment when two statues start crumbling away, and I remember them just going, just wings falling off and everything.
Yeah, that one was a little less intense.
It was. So seeing it again, I was like, oh, okay. I'm sure my kid brain was like, everything's falling apart.
That one thing fell off. Ah.
Yeah.
Wait, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, though. We should go back slightly. I want you to pitch this to me so that the audience, maybe if they, like me, did not acquaint themselves with Neverending Story early on, maybe they'll find it a little easier to follow. Because it's a movie where, out of context, none of it will make any kind of sense at all. In context, it only makes so much sense. But maybe if we contextualize some of this, it'll be a little bit easier to track.
Oh, you want me to do the pitch, baby?
Do the pitch.
Oh, you want me to do the pitch, baby?
Less so every second.
All right. So if I were to try to pitch the Neverending Story,
Yes.
I would say that if you love Jim Henson style puppetry, if you love storytelling that doesn't hold children's hands and really lets them experience the darkness and despair of actual life.
Your beloved pets will die.
I mean, it's true. If you want a story that is so meta that it ropes you into it as well as the viewer, then Neverending Story is for you. It's conceptually interesting, visually interesting, and it really finds a way of wrapping you in. That will all that said, I think watching it as an adult, there are some things that you're like, that's weird, and some things you might pull out that I think are more explained in the books than they are in the movie, because the movie is the first half of the first book.
Yeah, they hobbited it before Peter Jackson hobbited The Hobbit.
Yep. I'm sure that Peter Jackson was like, I'm going to do that shit, but I'm going to make the second one because I want money, which is also why he made the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He picks up the phone. He's like, hey, Martin Freeman, you want some money? Martin Freeman's like, yes. And that's why there are 3 Hobbit films.
Yep. So, I mean, that's the general pitch. I think that, like, I really can't sell it anymore without spoiling stuff. So I'm
Right.
going to drop down that sweet spoiler wall right now.
Okay.
Yes?
Oh yeah, I'm like, all right, let's do it. Yeah, I guess right. Very broadly, it's about a kid who's outcast. He's bullied. He hides in a bookshop. He finds a fancy, mysterious book, and he starts to read the story. And then he, and by extension, as you say, we, the audience, are pulled further and further and further into the world of Fantasia. So did nobody, when Disney made their Fantasia, was nobody like, hey?
When was Disney's Fantasia made?
I want to say it was like, wasn't it like the end of the? I actually have no idea.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that Fantasia is the Americanized version. I think that the direct translation is Fantastica.
Oh, so Disney's Fantasia was 44 years earlier than the Neverending Story. So, in fact, it would be Disney that would say, hey.
Yeah.
And Disney's normally really on top of that. Like, didn't the Disney company at one point, weren't there, like, kids' murals at schools, and the Disney company was like, you got to paint over those?
Maybe.
I feel like I heard that. That could be something the internet invented. But still, they're pretty litigious. So I'm surprised that we never heard the never-ending story of that piece of litigation.
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, maybe the term Fantasia extends beyond them, and so, like, they can't copyright that word or that concept.
Fantasia 2000 was a really petty swipe at Neverending Story.
It was like, you want to make more sequels, motherfucker? Too bad you can't. I ain't got no scruples. That's the
Mickey Mouse? Who is that?
That's the Disney like catchphrase. It's like, Disney, I ain't got no scruples. Yeah. And that's what they yell in the courtroom as well. They're like,
Do you know who I am? I'm Disney. I ain't got no scruples. $1 million fine.
And the guy talking is just some guy who wandered in off the street, and immediately he's picked up and carried out by bailiffs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the lawyer walks up and is like, as the man said, we ain't got no scruples.
Who is this character?
This is the lawyer. This is Disney's lawyer.
Why does he talk like that?
Because that's how lawyers talk, Lex.
It's his coastal elite
Have you
voice.
never met a lawyer? That's what they teach you in law school. Like, once you pass the bar, they're like, here's how you extend your arguments.
Right, there's diction courses and things.
Right. And you're like, okay, the law, I uphold the law. I uphold the law.
And you've got people in the class, like, everybody's reading it out in turns, and one guy's like, I will uphold the law. And the instructor's like, you will never pass the bar that way.
Yeah. Yep. It's all about, like, extending your vowels. Ooh, I'm a lawyer.
Yeah, it's the coastal elite voice.
Maybe I've only met Wizards of the Coast. No, Lawyers on the Coast.
What?
Wizards of the Coast is a company that does the magic cards. Lawyers on the Coast are the lawyers that I've met who speak with elongated vowels. Got it. Anyways.
Lawyers of Waverly Place.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So I've lost track of all thoughts.
That's all right. That's you're allowed because you're a coastal elite and nothing can touch you.
That's true. I have all of the protection.
Right. You're insulated socially. You have all of the money. Right. Yeah. So doesn't matter, man. They can't. It doesn't matter if you have anything to say at all or know what that thing might be. Coastal elite, bro.
Hell yeah.
You're protected. You're part of the protected class.
Heck yeah. Speaking of coasts, man, Atreyu, the character that was sent on a quest by the young empress, was really coasting through the lands until he met he got to the darkest place of all. You see that You see that transition?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Thank you. So a really big standout character is Atreyu, who is like Bastion's surrogate in this story.
Right.
So like, and you get the impression that depending on who is reading the book, Atreyu will take on their attributes.
Right, because before we see Atreyu in the story for the first time, Bastion finds that image of the Native American charging at whatever he was charging at on horseback.
It's a buffalo, yeah.
The buffalo, that's right. Because right, they hunt purple buffalo or something where Atreyu's from.
Yeah.
Which I would like to see that movie. I would like to see the slow, meditative Western where Atreyu hunts purple buffalo. And maybe like falls in love and has to save his father's land or something like that.
Yeah.
But I couldn't decide whether or not it was problematic. And I ultimately am not one to be bothered by these things, but I got over it very quickly. But when Atreyu first showed up, I had a moment of, wait, is this how through the prism of 2019 optics might one feel about the choice to deck him out that way? I don't know much about this actor. Was the actor who played Atreyu Native American, or was it a white person in some Native American garb?
I don't have an answer for that. I know that he went to school in LA, so like he's American. He's just an American dude. I mean, I think that like I don't think that was a consideration for them in terms of like Native American versus like
right,
because I believe the character in the books is supposed to have like green skin and is supposed to look a lot different.
Got it.
And so they were just like, let's simplify this.
Right. I don't think I would have thought about it for a second if the image Bastion looks at before Atreyu enters wasn't so explicitly Native American.
Right. Yeah. Also, like Atreyu is, I think, the composer's son.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's related to someone in the like above the line cast crew.
Got it.
So you know, it was always going to be him. That Hathaway was always going to be Atreyu. But yeah, so I really like the journey that Atreyu goes on, because it is very much like a traditional quest. You know, like and you get a lot of his journey through exposition where Bastion is doing voiceover and talking about like he went to this place and he flew over the Silver Mountains and all these things and never really found what he was looking for, which his like quest was very ambiguous. It was like, hey, find something that will save the queen or the empress.
Right. And combat nothing. I mean, your adversary in this story is literal nothing, embodied by smog, I guess.
Kind of, yeah.
Like, is the whole thing a metaphor for pollutants in the air?
No, you're thinking of Fern Gully.
God, well, that's not even a metaphor. That's explicitly pollutants in the air and whatnot.
Just because they sing doesn't mean they can't be a metaphor.
Every movie, if you work hard enough, every movie is about how we're destroying the planet.
I mean, that's true. I mean, especially now.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Especially now.
Yep.
Heroes now more than ever.
So the nothing is actually, it seems to be kind of a metaphor for people's loss of imagination.
Right. And this is something that we weave through the entire story, both thematically, implicitly, and also very explicitly. I do want to touch on what is maybe my favorite scene in the movie is one of the lowest key scenes. It's the scene very early on between Bastion and his father.
Oh, yeah.
Played by George McCraney, who I know from Deadwood, where he played George Hurst.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there watching Bastion eat his breakfast and shit, going like, motherfucker, he's right behind you. He's going to kill you and take your land. But I like the scene a lot. Largely because of the way he's playing it. I like that Bastion's father seems to care. He does. Like, he's not portrayed as like a domineering, monstrous parental figure who's like, imagination is terrible and you need to stop because no one cares what you think. None of that.
Yeah.
You know, I do like, though, the scene early in the scene, Bastian's telling him, he's like, he had a dream about his deceased mother.
Yeah.
And I love that Gerald McCraney, the way he plays it, he's in the background and he's continuing to make a smoothie while he's responding. And he doesn't respond. It's interesting because his words seem callous, but his performance has greater warmth to it. But the bit about how, well, we can't let mom not being here be an excuse for not getting the old job done and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he is the character who essentially says, not even, and again, not in an angry, condescending way, but basically saying, you can't spend all your time daydreaming. You got to keep your feet on the ground. And you get a lot. I like this scene because you get a lot of information about Bastian's father in this scene. And of course, you never see this character again in the movie, but you get a really great picture of what that character is and what his impact on his son is. And there's still like love there. And I think that's interesting because I think there are a lot of stories that would paint that character, if not as a villain necessarily, certainly as a bit of an antagonistic force.
Right.
But he's very pragmatic. He clearly cares about his son, and I appreciated that about it. And you get, like I said, you get a ton of information about their relationship in this very short scene. And then, of course, you set up one of the biggest themes of the entire story, which is, trying to reconcile, the desire of others to keep your feet on the ground and your own desire to keep your head in the clouds as long as you possibly can.
Right.
So anyway, I like that scene.
No, it's a really good scene. I agree that it's really played well because, we've all had parents who have been like, "Oh, it's time to get your stuff together. You can't just be daydreaming all day." Though I do like to imagine there's a deleted scene where he gets a call that his son never showed up to school, and he's just crying because he's like, first my wife, and now my son. Everything is coming apart.
Yeah, but he's crying while he's making a smoothie.
Yep.
And he's like, no excuse for not getting the old job done. And then he's like, you see him pour a whole bottle of vodka into the
I mean, because it's crazy. I think, again, it's another thing that, like, as an adult, you realize that Bastian left his home in the morning, and I guess you'd have to imagine stayed overnight, because at the end of the climax of the movie, it's nighttime.
Right. So he's been gone all day, and he's chased off by the bullies. He hides in a bookstore, and he basically has to swing his dick around and be like, "Yo, I read. Look at all of the books I've read, bitch." And the bookstore owner's like, "Well, shit, okay, I've been put in my place. Let me wander away from this magic book, so you may or may not find it and shit."
Right.
And then Bastian literally steals. I mean, one of the first decisions that our child protagonist makes is to steal someone else's shit, leave a little note, be like, "I'll give it back, I swear."
Yeah.
Because that makes it okay. Like, I'm going to try that out now. I'm going to go and, like, next time I'm at Ralph's, I'm going to grab a whole bunch of stuff, but I'll have index cards with me. And every time I pull something off of the shelves, I'll be like, I'm going to return this bag of popcorn. There you go. I'm going to return this pound of tuna.
So I guess the one flaw with your plan
is the law.
Well, I was going to say that, like, a book maintains its form once used.
Right. It's very difficult to return a pound of tuna once it's been used.
Yeah. So
no one would want it.
You're either providing a bag of vomit or a bag of poop. Like, these are your options.
This is as good as gold. Think about all the land you could buy with that. From a very confused landowner.
Yeah,
who doesn't realize, like, if you could convince somebody that they fell asleep for 100 years and now this is currency, and then get them to sign it over, and then they find out that they've been screwed out of their land, and thus begins their hero's journey. That's what happens to adult Bastian. That's what Neverending Story 3 is about.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep, because he spends so much time in Fantasia that he comes back and the bullies are grown-ups now, and they're like, yeah, we use poop as a currency, because like it's a great cycle of life. You consume and then you use that poop to grow more vegetables, and then you eat those vegetables. It's a great cycle. And Bastion's like, well, my dad's dead because I've been gone so long, and he killed himself because I thought I was kidnapped. And so I have this house. So why don't I'll take all your poop for this house. And then he finds out that he was tricked and is like, oh man, I should probably go back to Fantasia.
It's like, Falcor, chase them into the garbage again. But so he steals the book, right? Yeah. And then this thieving delinquent, this danger, this menace to society, goes to school, but then ducks out of his classes and sneaks into the most preposterously creepy attic that a school could have.
I mean, is it creepy?
There's literally, it looks like there's a skeleton in there, man. And like, you could be like, well, it's a model skeleton for a science class, and be like, nah, I don't believe you. My headcanon is that's a dead person. That's the last person who tried to read the story in there. Like, the bookshop owner has been doing this for decades,
right?
Trying to find. He's like Mr. Glass and shit. He's trying to find the one person who has the ability to sustain the damage that the book inflicts and whatnot. And that guy, that skeleton, couldn't take it.
Oh man,
couldn't take it at all. And like, if you had spent more time in that attic, like he wanders around, but he's usually in dark little corners when he puts the book down. It's like, they can't be talking about me. He's in the dark and stuff. But if you lit that room a little bit, if you lit some candles and stuff, you'd see all of the dead people. It would be like in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Under the Planet, when you see, spoilers, all of the bones of Ego's children and whatnot. It's like that.
Yeah.
But you don't see, or it's like at the end of From Dusk Till Dawn, more spoilers, when you pull back from the back of the bar and you see it's an ancient temple with all of the destroyed like trucks, and there's bodies and shit all over the place. That's what it's like, and the bookseller is behind all of it. He is the power behind the nothing that the wolf was talking about.
Right. Now that you brought that up, because I really want to talk, because we've started talking about Atreyu, who is the champion of the light, and we also got Gmork, the champion of the nothing,
Wolfenstein,
who like it at the very end of the movie is like, hey, here's all this exposition about like what the nothing is and how it's being used. Also, there's another bad guy. Bye.
Well, and then he jumps at Atreyu, and Atreyu literally he kills the big puppet thing by impaling him through the heart.
Yeah,
it was just pretty gnarly.
Apparently, just a little trivia for you guys. That wolf puppet, they only got one shot of that because it almost ripped his eye out.
What, the puppet almost ripped the kid's eye out?
Yeah.
Dang.
So like in the next scene, you see a little scar by his face. That was a real scar because he like the when it jumped out, the claw like grazed his face. Accidentally.
That's got to violate some kind of child labor, something. No,
not in Germany, baby. You can do whatever you want to children in Germany.
We are lawless
as long as you're videotaping it. That's the rule.
Good Lord.
But I liked that character because he also goes through his own like hero's journey.
The wolf?
Yeah.
All right.
Because like he's sent on his quest at the very same time that Atreyu is. And so you see him start to track down Atreyu, so he starts going in all these different areas that Atreyu was, and he almost gets him. He almost gets Atreyu. And Atreyu, luckily, because Luckdragon, gets rescued at the last minute.
I will say that's a really well-executed, very suspenseful bit of business.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, I'm sitting there watching the movie going, all right, well, you're not going to kill the child protagonist, at least this early in the movie. So you assume he's going to get saved somehow, especially once you know Falcor's on his way and whatnot.
Right.
But it cuts it so close that you actually have that moment for a second. Like, is he going to lose a leg or something in this sequence?
Yeah.
He doesn't.
I mean, but maybe he does. Maybe they sewed it back on.
in a deleted scene.
Yeah.
And they cut it because it was just horrifying to everybody.
Probably.
Like the grown men were weeping.
I would have. It would have been sad. But yeah, so and then when they next meet, they're both at their all is lost moment, and they essentially, like, you get the comedy tragedy ending for them both, where Gamork does his statement of purpose and Atreyu does his statement of purpose, and then the comedy is that Atreyu wins in, like, Shakespearean terms because he survives,
right?
And the tragedy in terms of Gamork because he dies,
right?
But if either one of them would have won, like if it would have been the other way around, it would have been a hero moment for that other one. So like the Nothing would have raised up Gamork and been like, "You did it! You're amazing!" Then Gamork would have been like, "I'm a wolf."
See, you're making me feel kind of bad for Gamork.
Well, you should, because he was on his hero's journey.
I guess I wasn't tracking it as closely as I could have been.
Yeah.
But when you put it that way, I feel a little bad. I feel like maybe they didn't need to kill each other after all. Except maybe they kind of did.
I mean, yeah. Well, when two heroes' journeys clash, one of them has to go.
Unstoppable force, immovable object.
It's true. That's how it works.
But he kills the thing with it's really more of like a sharp piece of rock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought that was pretty gnarly. Like he's dead. He just kills the big puppet wolf thing. There's some stuff that's upsetting in this picture.
I agree.
Can we talk about the horse drowning? Like, all right, so
Yes.
I'm really glad that they undrowned the horse at the end of this thing because that upset me. I was not prepared for how upsetting that sequence would be.
Yeah. It traumatized a lot of people as youths. It, like, every time I hear the word Artax, like, I can just hear Atreyu screaming, being like, "Come on, you stupid horse!" Because it is legitimately upsetting to, like, see this creature falling into, like, he can't verbalize his despair.
Right.
And so, like, you see it, essentially him being swallowed up by the essence of sadness until he is no more.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I was devastated by the end of this scene. I was like, do I turn this off now? Do I need therapy?
I mean, maybe.
It shook me.
Well, so that to me is a really interesting aspect of the movie as a whole, in that it shows characters in full despair. Like, not only the horse who you have to see die, but, like, also the rockbiter by the end, who is the first character that you meet.
Right.
You see him at his moment of deepest despair, where he tried to save his friend.
Right.
And ultimately, he lost them. And, like, he starts to, like, question his own strength. Like, you see him, like, looking at his hands, being like, "I always thought they were big, strong, good hands."
Right.
But they weren't enough to, like, save his friends. And at that point, he decides that, like, his failure means that life isn't worth living.
He's Thor in Endgame.
I mean, kind of, all of these characters fail at one point or another. Like, back when we were talking about Gamork, he failed, and he was in that cave because he realized it was useless. He was about to get swallowed up by the Nothing. Atreyu fails multiple times. Like, and he gets to the point where he's on that beach, not able to find the boundaries of Fantasia, and he's also reached his, like, point of despair, and he almost gives up at that point, if not for him meeting Gamork and like having that moment of, like, heroism.
Right.
He too would have just been swallowed up or allowed himself to be so. So, like, every character, even Bastion, kind of has to be coaxed into doing what he needs to do. Like, he never really believes it until the very last moment. Right. And then he basically comes down to the wire to where there's only one grain of sand left of Fantasia. Everything else is gone. So like no one really does any. I guess Falkor remains pretty cool to the end. He's like, I'm a luck dragon. I fuck shit up real good. Hell yeah. You want me to find your necklace? Got it. You want me to save you at the last minute? Got it. Oh boy.
You want me to terrorize those bullies? On top of it.
Hell
what
yeah.
I was really hoping, because at the end, obviously Bastion gets folded into the story and he gets to make wishes and he ends up getting to ride Falkor, and he takes Falkor back to the city where he lives and spooks the bullies so they jump in the dumpster. But for about half a second, I was like, oh, this will be amazing, as if it's like Game of Thrones, but spoilers, when Daenerys is like, fuck it, I'm gonna burn everything down,
yeah.
and it's him and Falkor just laying waste to the entire city while Bastion cackles, and then the Empress sits there on her throne with one tear coming down her face, realizing that Bastion had the nothing inside of him all along and shit.
Actually, so I was doing a lot of research on the book, and something like that kind of happens.
Oh. Like in the second half of the book?
Yeah.
Got it. Because I will say this. I will say when I found out that it only adapts the first half of the book, that made a lot of sense to me insofar as it feels like once we get towards the end, we start to wrap things up real fast.
Right. Yeah, which is weird because I feel like we meander a bit in the beginning, but it is also part of that, like, you know, if you draw the hero's journey, like, symbol, or not the sign, but the graph of how like peaks and valleys and stuff. Sure. Like we definitely like get there.
Yeah.
And it ends the way that you would expect a lighthearted adventure story to end. But the way that the book continues on is that like the wishes that he makes, essentially they are granted at the expense of his own memories. So every time he makes a wish and restores a part of Fantasia, he loses a memory.
That's pretty dark.
Oh yeah.
So by the end of this, is it like Flowers for Algernon? And by the end of the story, he's just sitting there vacant, doesn't even remember Fantasia at all, barely remembers who he is. He's trying to get like a square peg through a round hole and stuff.
Probably. Well, I don't. I've never.
There's some fucked up shit in this story, sir.
Well, I've never seen Flowers for Algernon or read it.
Well, I think the movie's called Charlie.
Okay.
I think with Cliff Robertson, if I recall correctly.
Okay. But he does, he starts to change his outer appearance, and he...
he's got a goth phase.
Kinda. So as he like does that, and as he keeps making more wishes, and as he starts to forget who he was, like he starts to kind of become a megalomaniac, because now he has all this power to like change the world that he's created, and so he overthrows the child empress, and then Atreyu essentially has to lead a rebellion against him, and
he's actually like the Darth Vader of this story.
Kinda, yeah.
All right, interesting.
Yeah, he so like a part of, if I remember correctly, the way that the way that his story ends specifically is that he wanders around Fantasia trying to finish the stories that he had started before he went mad, but since he's lost all of his memories, he doesn't remember how they're supposed to end, and so it's like a tragic journey of trying to accomplish a thing that can never be done.
Well, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Is that what the second movie's about? Because
No.
I'm aware that what I read was that they used the second half of the book as sort of the basis for the second movie, which implied to me that it's not a direct adaptation of the second half of the book.
Right. They like touch it a little bit.
So he doesn't become evil?
No.
All right.
He never becomes evil.
That's what I'd be like, I'm going home right now. Fuck this podcast. I'm going home right now to watch part 2 where the little boy becomes evil. But if you're telling me that doesn't happen, I will stay here and ride this out. Okay.
Well, one, never tell me to fuck my podcast ever again. 2, I assume because this movie was so dark, they really decided not to pursue that avenue. And so the second one is definitely like way lighter.
Right. It's hard to merchandise a movie this bleak towards small children, I suppose.
Yeah. Which, like, I think that is part of the reason why the original book author didn't like the movie, in that, like, he felt like, one, all of his books do not talk down to children. And so he's like, hey, kids, death is a thing, and it'll, and you know, all these adult concepts. Like, I guess he also has a book about a dragon that would steal children to try to lecture them about dragon purity. So he grew up.
Wait, like dragon eugenics?
Yes.
All right.
So yes, context. He grew up in the midst of, you know, World War II.
Yeah, there's some freaky shit happening.
Yeah. So I think for him, that's
what public school taught me about World War II. So between the late 1930s and the early 1940s, some freaky shit was happening.
Yeah.
That will be on the test.
It's true.
The test was one question, and it's true, false. Freaky shit was happening.
True.
A
plus. So yeah, so that idea permeates his all of his writing.
Makes some sense.
Yeah. So he felt like this movie ending on a positive note undermines the idea of his book, which was that like imagination without a purpose is a dangerous thing, and like you're not supposed to try to escape from your reality. You're supposed to use your imagination to, like, you know, forward the rest of mankind and things of that sort.
Not to escape your reality, but ideally to improve it.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, you know, the book is supposed to show the folly of trying to escape your reality, which is why when Bastian gets to Fantasia and starts like trying to change himself and trying to change the world in his own image and things of that sort, like you see how, or the dangers of that, because he was trying to escape his own reality.
Right.
Like in the book, his reading is more obsessive than like, oh, look, I'm cool, I like books. And it's more that like he lost his mom, and the only way that he really copes with it is to read and try to escape, you know, like drastic escapism.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like, feel like we could all sort of relate to that, especially now. A lot of us feel powerless to change our reality, so many of us are driven to escape it.
Right.
I bet this dude would love the Marvel movies.
Probably.
He'd watch Infinity War, and he'd go, "Wow, fuck my entire previous thesis. Fuck all of it. I'm living here now."
Yeah. Though the bookstore owner would not like the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That's right, because he comes in and the kid's like, you know, I read a lot of books, and he's like, "What, comic books?"
Yeah.
And the kid's like, "Why are you talking like that?" I don't know. I wonder if I handed the bookstore owner Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, maybe then
he'd be like, "What are these fucking pictures?
This green douchebag. I hate green."
You can tell. He's
the reason he likes prose so much is because none of it is green.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's very experienced.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, you get it.
Terrible joke.
Ha-ha.
That doesn't even make sense in this context. He's dabbing now.
Always makes sense. Everything I say makes, if anything, it makes dollars. Oh, yeah.
All right. Your coastal elitism has gone too far.
Ooh. Also, speaking of characters that fell into despair.
Yes.
One of my favorite characters from this movie, who I also assume is in the books, is Morla, the giant turtle.
Yeah.
She's like the most nihilistic character, and you can tell that she's been alone for so long.
Right, but she doesn't really give a shit. She's like, I don't even care that I don't care.
Yeah.
Fuck you. And the kid's like, that's unnecessarily rude.
Yeah, but she doesn't care. She doesn't care that she's being rude.
I don't care how rude it is. Look, I'm going to poke you with my foot. He's like, hey, stop it. She's like, no, I don't care that you want me to stop. This is Fantasia, where there is no consent.
Oh, no.
I told you, this movie goes hard, sir.
I liked the sneezing bit. That, like,
Yes.
it still makes me laugh.
Yes, where she's sneezing at him with the force of jets.
Yes. But also I think it's on the third one where, like, he's been pushed off the tree, climbs up the tree, talks some more, pushed off the tree, climbs up the tree, and then, like, she goes to start sneezing, and he, like, rolls his eyes so hard and then braces himself, and then she's like, I'm okay. And then fucking does it again, and he's like, I hate this, I hate you. I hope you get pulled up by the nothing by your fucking butthole.
I really like the exchange where he's like, are you sick? And she's like, no, I'm allergic to you. Fuck you. I'm a fucking power turtle. Fuck you. It's her catchphrase.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking power turtle.
She's the breakout character. You get the little Burger King toys with the little pamphlet, and you see all the little toys you can collect with their little catchphrase, and it says, I'm a power turtle. Fuck you.
Speaking of breakout characters.
Sure.
Another big controversy was the busty Southern oracles.
Yeah, okay. That's right. Those are in the movie.
Yeah. Well, those were the statues I was talking about earlier, if you've been listening since the beginning. If you're just tuning in, I mentioned earlier that I remembered a scene differently. When Atreyu, the main character of this film, The Neverending Story, reaches the Southern Oracle, they start crumbling. And I remember them crumbling into nothingness. I remember them basically just falling and cracking all around him like a shower of disembodied oracle. But it's mostly their faces. It's just their faces, and they start to go away.
Yep.
But they're the only character that is very direct and tells Atreyu exactly what he needs, even though technically they only gave him half of the story.
Right.
But they also have fun little trials to get to them. So the first one is the Southern Gate, which looks just like the Southern Oracles.
Right.
And if you doubt yourself, they will kill you.
Right. Like, they send one homeboy on a horse in there, and that dude dies. I appreciate, though, that the horse doesn't die. The horse fucks off out of there.
Oh, yeah.
The horse is like, what an asshole, and gallops away and shit. Oh, wait, yeah, we haven't even mentioned the gnome people yet either.
Oh, yeah.
They're in the movie.
We'll talk about them after. And then the next trial, which is supposed to be the worst trial, is it's the mirror. It's the ice mirror.
I mean, look, if you've got self-esteem issues, that could be pretty harsh, having to just take a good hard look in the mirror and stuff.
That's true. I guess if you're anyone but the protagonist of this film, then I guess it just shows you like all of your worst aspects. Whereas like for Atreyu, it just showed him that I guess technically it could be pretty disconcerting to know. I wonder if they explore this in the book, because from the moment you get to the Southern Oracle, there's all this stuff that could really fuck with you as a person, where like, one, you realize that you're just a vessel for some outside force. Like you're basically just an avatar. And then there's that moment when he's in that like cave system where he meets Gamork, where he's seeing all these old ancient paintings of him doing everything he did on his journey.
Right. And that immediately raises questions about, is there such a thing as free will in Fantasia?
Which is crazy.
It's pretty heavy. It's a big trip to lay on a kid.
Yeah.
Although, we establish pretty early on that Atreyu is supposed to be, he's obviously he's like this fabled guy, but he's proficient. Like he's mastered a lot of skills in terms of hunting and combat and stuff.
Yeah.
Even so, still very young person. It's some heady stuff.
Yeah. And he'd already gone through a lot of like sadness. Like he was about to be sinking in that swamp of sadness. So he's already bummed out, and now he realizes he's not even his own man.
Right.
What a bummer. But that anyway, that was really cool. And then yes, we get the gnome characters who it's a husband and wife, which really reminded me of the Miracle Max and his wife in the Princess Bride. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there is a correlation. I wonder if one of them was influenced by the other.
It's possible, right? And Princess Bride also has in common with Neverending Story the idea of a world that takes place entirely within a storybook that a young person is, well, in the case of Neverending Story, reading himself, and in the case of Princess Bride, being read.
Right.
But there's some interesting overlap between the two.
Mm-hmm. But they were fun. Like, I will say that I think that like the thing I really like about the Neverending Story, which I think is the most memorable part, is all of the different characters. There's no character that is generic or baseline. They're all really quirky and serve a purpose. There's nothing like tropey about them.
Sure.
Like, yeah, you get a racing snail, you get a giant rock biter, you have a bat that is used as a I don't remember what the name of that sport or extreme sport is.
Right.
Parasailing, paragliding,
hang gliding.
Hang gliding. Yeah, he's used as a hang glider for a hairy other guy. Like
for a hairy other guy.
Yeah,
but it's true. There's really nothing tropey about any of the characters. The closest being, of course, you could argue Atreyu and the Empress are slightly tropey characters,
right?
But the rest of the characters, yes, much less so. Whereas, like Princess Bride, for example, the characters are very intentionally tropey so that they can play on those tropes for comedic effect, for example.
Right.
So there's that.
And even Atreyu being, because the way that the actor plays it also is very like how he's very much how you would have a video game character that doesn't like really like, he emotes a lot, but he also is very much like a POV character where like you're supposed to feel what he's feeling.
Right.
And he lets you do that through like, sometimes he'll be a little more understated so that you can kind of feel the gravity of that situation.
Right.
But yeah, so I think that that's why people remember this movie so well, is because they get such a colorful world and very memorable characters that if you're experiencing them as a kid, like they stick with you because they're memorable.
That tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I like it, Lex. Stop making fun of me.
I'm a power turtle. Fuck you.
So yeah. Do you have any last thoughts about the Neverending Story before we head out?
I mean, I'm glad I've now seen it. This thing's pretty wild. I really was not anticipating how dark this thing was going to get in moments. And yeah, you compared it to some of the live action non-Muppet based Jim Henson projects. And yeah, very quickly I was reminded of things like Labyrinth and Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it, but you have seen those and enjoyed them, that is potentially a way in for you. I'm curious to see what's in the other movies. I don't know how soon I will go check that out, but I'm curious. Disappointing to hear that he does not descend into pure evil in the second installment. But I'm glad I've seen this. I feel like maybe I got to it a little too late for it to fully get its hooks into me the way it clearly did for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. If only for the sheer what the fuck of all of it. Because I was not prepared.
Yeah. Have you ever seen Return to Oz?
Long time ago.
Okay. Because it has that feel for me, where it takes these things that you're fairly familiar with, but it has a darker turn to it.
Right.
And is also very traumatizing. So I think that, like, if you like these really dark kids stories that will leave you with a sense of something deeper going on in the background, I think that is what is the most appealing thing about something like the Neverending Story.
Yeah.
Also, the main theme is a banger. That's fucking Neverending Story. That shit, play it every day.
It's
in
very,
your car.
very 80s.
Yes,
and I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, as you should, because it's so good. It's so good. But yeah. But what did you guys think about the Neverending Story? How do you wish you had your own Falcor? Would you also give up your memories in order to restore Fantasia? What would you name the Empress? Also,
Oh, that's right, Moonchild.
Yeah.
Where did they set up Moonchild earlier in the story and I missed it?
He said it's his mom's name.
No, right, but it's his mom's. I guess I didn't. I heard that, but the dots didn't want to connect in my brain.
Why can't you name a child? Why can't you have a person named Moonchild?
I guess you know what it is for me? I feel like I have a hard time buying that the dad character would marry a woman named Moonchild.
It makes sense to me in that, like, maybe Moonchild, the mom, was like a manic pixie dream girl type character.
Right.
Where she's like, I'm free, I'm a hippie. And then he's like, oh, man, you're really going to help me get out of my straight-laced ways, and we're going to have a child together.
And maybe it starts to work, right? But then she dies, and he just goes headfirst back into work.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other movie there about a father who's a workaholic, who's overly pragmatic, who cares for his son, but their relationship is strained, and he has to learn how to open up and love again.
Yeah.
He's got to learn how to take his feet off the ground occasionally.
Indeed. I would love to see this story. I think it's called Sleepless in Seattle.
I'll take it.
Yep. All right.
I don't know what Sleepless in Seattle's about.
Neither do I.
It's the one that's not You've Got Mail.
I think that's what I was thinking of when I said Sleepless in Seattle.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Right. The Sleepless in Seattle is the one where they don't have mail.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's how it works. Lex.
And Joe versus the Volcano is the one where he fights a volcano.
Yeah. He just punches it until it closes up. It's really cool. Mm-hmm. If you've never seen it, that's what it's about.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Lex, where can people find you if they want to talk to you more about the Neverending Story?
Where? Twitter and Instagram at the Lex Michael.
And you can find me at Tari J, TaurijJay. And you can also find this podcast at Missing Outcast. That's MissingOutcast on Instagram and Twitter. Let us know what you thought about the Neverending Story, or our discussion about the Neverending Story, or watch the Neverending Story on Amazon or wherever you get your media. It's readily available. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Until then, this has been the retrospective that's introspective.
And I'm a power turtle. Fuck you. And now you have a new perspective.